I'm 80 years old, and 6 months ago my best friend of 57 years died. Saying that out loud still feels unreal, like I'm borrowing someone else's sentence. His death didn't arrive with noise or drama. It arrived quietly, and it stayed. I wake up every morning now with the same thought sitting on my chest, heavier than the day before. There are things I should have said, days I assumed would repeat forever. I used to believe time slowed down if you were loyal enough to it. I was wrong. If you're expecting a heroic story, this isn't it. This is about an ordinary life and a friendship so steady, I stopped noticing it was holding me up. I'm telling you this now because I don't have the luxury of pretending anymore. At my age, you don't talk about loss in the abstract. You count it. You feel it in empty chairs and unanswered habits. You feel it when a phone stays silent and you realize it's your turn to make the call, but there's no one left on the other end. The hardest part isn't that he's gone. The hardest part is understanding how much of myself went with him, and realizing I learned that too late now. I met him on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday. Same bus stop, same chipped bench, same impatience with the morning. We worked in the same municipal office, different desks, different files, no reason to talk beyond politeness. He asked if the seat beside me was taken. I said no. That was it. No spark, no moment worth remembering, except that it stayed. We learned each other through repetition, coffee at 10, lunch packed in brown paper, complaints about the copier that never worked. We didn't exchange confessions. We exchanged nods. Some days we spoke, some days we didn't. Nothing felt important enough to mark. Weeks turned into months without announcement. He knew my handwriting before he knew my history. I knew how he took his tea before I knew his wife's name. When one of us was late, the other noticed. When one of us was quiet, the other waited. If you had asked me then who would matter in my life, I would have named louder people. I didn't know that the most permanent things arrive without knocking. Back then, I believed importance announced itself. I didn't yet understand how quietly forever begins for most people. Time moved the way it always does when you're busy living, unnoticed. 1 year became 10 without asking permission. We married, not to each other, but around the same time. Children arrived, careers shifted, houses changed, yet somehow our days kept intersecting, like parallel lines that never drifted too far apart. Every Friday we called, not for long, 5 minutes, sometimes less. Just enough to confirm the other was still there. Birthdays were remembered without reminders. Dinners happened without planning. His family knew my knock, mine expected his voice. Holidays rotated naturally. No calendars were harmed in the making of those traditions. We aged together without comment, hair thinned, knees protested. Responsibilities grew heavier, but the habits stayed light. A nod across a room, a message that read, "All good?" and needed no reply. When work became unbearable, we complained briefly and moved on. When joy arrived, we shared it without spectacle. There was comfort in that sameness. No explanations required, no performances expected. We didn't analyze the friendship, we lived inside it. It was dependable in a way excitement never is. Looking back now, I see that those ordinary repetitions were doing something remarkable. They were stitching our lives together quietly, one small moment at a time. The first real test didn't come with warning. My father passed away on a gray Tuesday, the kind of day that feels like it's paused for no reason. Tom showed up at my door without a call. No speech, no advice, just a presence that filled the room like heat. He didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer cliches about moving on or better days. He simply stood there. I remember his hand on my shoulder, steady, solid, and silent. That was enough. Years later, his son got into trouble, jail, court dates, humiliation. He blamed himself in ways I recognized all too well, but I couldn't speak him out of it. So I sat. I listened. I reminded him gently that life isn't measured by mistakes alone. Presence mattered more than words. We didn't rush to solutions. We just endured together. We watched. We waited. We kept showing up. It's easy to confuse friendship with fun when you're young. Real friendship, I learned then, is being there in rooms full of quiet grief. It's the shared acknowledgement that life doesn't hand you scripts, and sometimes the only right thing you can do is to simply exist beside someone. That silent support is weightless, yet unshakable. It's a trust you can't teach, only live. And I learned it first in those small, painful moments. When I was younger, I thought friends were for laughter, for nights out, for shared excitement. I didn't understand that the value of a friend isn't in how loud the moments feel, but in how quietly they hold you when life gets heavy. Age changes your perspective. You start noticing the cracks in people, the small struggles, and you realize the ones who stick around matter far more than the ones who cheer the loudest. Friendship becomes less about entertainment and more about survival. It's about emotional safety. It's the person who arrives when you're too tired to answer the phone, who sits in silence while you cry, who remembers the small details of your life even when you've forgotten them yourself. I've come to understand that showing up consistently, without fanfare, without expectation, is the real measure of a bond. Laughter is a gift, but presence is a necessity. And in those quiet acts, in those unremarkable repeated gestures, friendship reveals itself as something deeper than companionship. It's a lifeline. Years later, the roles shifted. Tom lost his wife suddenly. I got the call at 3 a.m, a voice breaking in a way I hadn't heard before. I drove through quiet streets thinking of nothing except being there. When I arrived, he was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the floor, hands clasped. No words, no advice, just grief. I sat across from him and said nothing. I didn't need to. We had done this for each other before, in smaller ways. Now it was reversed. I held his hand when it shook. I poured him coffee without a word. Hours passed, the clock ticking softly in the background. The silence spoke louder than anything I could have offered. That's when I realized the true depth of our bond. It wasn't one-sided. We had always shown up, but now the symmetry was clear. Loyalty wasn't measured by grand gestures or proclamations. It was measured in quiet, unwavering presence. We grieved together in a way only people who know each other for decades can. In that shared stillness, I understood how deeply we had chosen each other, over and over, for every ordinary and devastating moment. As the years stacked up, routines became our anchors. Tuesday and Thursday mornings at the same diner, the smell of coffee grinding, the clatter of plates, the same booth where sunlight fell across the table just right. Small talk filled the gaps, the weather, the news, the Cubs, the odd neighbor sighting. Nothing extraordinary, and yet it meant everything. Those routines were proof that we still existed, still mattered to someone. Nostalgia crept in quietly. We began telling the same stories, laughing at the same mistakes, pointing out memories in the photographs hanging crooked on the walls of our homes. I noticed how much time had passed, how much had changed, and how much had stayed the same. Those reflections were comforting, but they also whispered reminders that time doesn't wait. Then came the small cracks, forgetfulness, misplaced keys, repeated questions, moments where he would stare and not recognize a familiar face. I could see the fear growing in his eyes, fear of losing himself, of forgetting the life he had built, of vanishing while still breathing. and I realized I felt the same fear in my own chest, fear of losing him, fear of losing the last pieces of the life we had shared. 6 months ago, it ended quietly. No fanfare, no alarms beyond the ones in the hospital hallways. Tom had a stroke. 2 days later, I was holding his hand as his chest rose and fell slowly, then more shallowly, until it didn't rise at all. His eyes were closed, and I whispered to him, the words trembling in my throat, "It's okay, you can go." And he did. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee from the night before. Machines hummed, a soft background rhythm to the silence that had replaced our conversations. I stayed there long after the nurses left, hand still in his, feeling the weight of everything he had been to me. He wasn't just my friend, he was a living record of my life. Every joke, every regret, every secret I had carried, he remembered them all. Now that memory was gone with him. I wandered through his home afterward, touching objects that carried fragments of him. A mug with a chip on the rim, a folded newspaper with his notes in the margins, a coat left on the hook exactly where he had hung it for decades. It struck me in a way nothing else ever had. Losing Tom wasn't just losing a person. It was losing a part of myself, a witness to a history that would no longer be shared. The silence that followed his passing was heavier than grief alone, an emptiness stitched into every corner of my life. I didn't realize how much I was taking Tom for granted until he was gone. I assumed there would always be another Tuesday breakfast, another Thursday diner visit, another story to share. I was wrong. Time doesn't wait, and people don't stay forever. Every moment I postponed, every call I didn't make, every later I believed in is gone now, irretrievable. If you're listening, don't make the same mistake. Reach out to the people who matter while they're still here. Call them, visit them, sit with them, even when it's inconvenient or you feel tired. Don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is now. I carry regret, yes, but I also carry gratitude. I'm grateful for 57 years of unwavering friendship, for all the mornings, all the dinners, all the silences we shared. And I want you to take that lesson with you. Cherish the people in your life while you can. Don't assume there's more time. Who in your life are you going to reach out to today?